What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 36, Ghost Island. The episode right before the merge is going to happen. Super, super exciting. And I was pleasantly surprised from this episode because if you watched our last podcast, we basically said and predicted what was going to happen in this episode. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and I was pleasantly surprised just by this episode as a whole, because I just feel like there were so many times where people could have made very poor decisions and then they didn't. And I feel like everything worked out the way it should have this episode, and I was happy.
Yeah, I feel like episodes right before the merge and maybe 1 to 2 into the merge, it's usually slower or not as interesting. So I felt like this episode, even though it was freaking advantage get-in where every single person found an advantage right before the merge, I feel like this episode sets up really well for a really good merge and really good merge episodes in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I feel like I was happy because there wasn't the same storylines that we've been seeing for the past couple of weeks. They didn't mention Dominic versus Chris, and I was like, thank God, because I feel like it's definitely this episode definitely set up the merge to have a lot more conflicting things, with the old Malolo versus the old Navidi, and how people might be upset that they didn't stay Navidi strong or whatever. And I just thought it was interesting too because Malolo finally ended their losing streak, and I feel like that was the first curse that was broken this season. It was the first time that something actually worked out right.
Yeah, we see a lot of curses this episode. It was basically a history episode of past moves on Survivor. So I think for this podcast, we want to start with Bradley getting voted out, and then we'll go back and talk about all of the advantages and stuff. And even though, so last week in the podcast, Alyssa and I were talking okay, we think, yeah, Bull's going to go to Tribal. Yes, yay, we saw that happen. But then we were sort of conflicted, Bradley versus Libby, who would you vote out? Because we saw a lot of it play out in this episode, okay, vote Bradley out because he is annoying, and then I guess they ended up voting him because of his tendencies, but then you also keep someone like Libby who is a threat in the game as well. So I think this vote, and I guess we'll talk about it, but it was good and bad for certain people, so it wasn't maybe as beneficial for everyone on this tribe.
Yeah, I feel like there are two people who is definitely beneficial for, and then two people where it's kind of a mixed bag. So
yeah, so I think we'll start with Dominic because it seems like he and Chelsea were the two main proponents, besides Libby and Donathan, obviously, for the Bradley vote out. And I would put Dominic in the mixed bag because I can't really tell if this is a good or bad move for him. I think good, you sort of get a maybe annoying player voted out of the game. It breaks the Kellan-Bradley alliance. But then bad because I think potentially, this can lose Dominic a lot of numbers right before the merge because I can't really tell who is going to be in Dom's court for the whole Chris versus Dominic feud. Where I can see oh, X, Y, and Z are probably with Chris. I can't really name anyone who is with Dominic besides maybe Wendell.
Yeah, I feel like Wendell is definitely, I'd say, with Dominic. And Dominic was one of the people I was thinking of where it's a mixed bag. Just because, honestly, I think both Bradley and Libby had the potential to screw him over. I feel like either way he votes, he's still going to end up with a threat in the game for him. So I feel like Dominic, it was definitely not a bad move, but also not the greatest Survivor move he's ever made.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it also shows both time Dom has gone to Tribal, he has voted out one of his own Navidi people. And so the first time they all flipped on Angela. So he just had that whole Chris Dom feud going on in his head. This time he flips and wants to vote out Bradley, to break the alliances. Bradley was seemingly the person who was in charge of like the Navidi group with Kellan. So like I can see that point of view. Like, yes, you're breaking this pair, but I don't know. I feel like I guess we'll see the repercussions next week, but I think like after you vote out for like someone like Kellan, Desiree, Sebastian, once Bradley's gone, does Kellan and them want to go with Dominic, who just voted out your main man, or do you want to like I don't know where you would vote if the first vote is going to be between someone like a Chris and a Dominic? Like who do you go with then?
The thing is, I feel like one of the things about Dominic voting out, like one of his own Navidi members, is that he's saying that like tribe lines don't matter to him, and I feel like that can be a really bold, important statement to make right before the merge, because it's like he might not have all of the Navidi people, but he might get more of the original Malolos and stuff like that, and I feel like it's just he's playing a game where he's putting himself in a better position to reach both sides, I feel like. But the problem is I'm not sure if he's going to be successful in reaching both sides.
No, yeah. I 100% agree. I think voting out Bradley, does that gain Dominic the Libby and Donathan alliance members? Not sure. I really don't see Libby and Donathan working maybe with Dominic, but I mean Donathan, he's just like doing whatever. He's like flip flop between Dominic and then Chris. But I feel like Libby come merge, I feel like she would go back to people like Michael and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like Libby is definitely not gonna stick with Dominic, especially because like he made it very clear that he still doesn't trust her, and so I feel like it's like why would she like stay with him when she could go back to people like Michael or whatever. But I think that this was definitely a good vote for Libby, because if it was either her or Bradley, it's good for her that she didn't go home.
Yeah, I think for Libby, Donathan, good. They're still in the game. You vote out someone who you don't like and would probably never work with from exit interviews. Bradley said that him and Donathan didn't get along at all, and he sort of like badmouth Libby as, oh, she's just like a pretty girl who's like talking about makeup and stuff all the time on the island, but she's not actually like thinking out there. So I feel like for Libby and Donathan, like you vote out this guy that you're probably not going to have any bonds with kind of thing. And I feel like Libby especially good because I think her and Chelsea are very close. So I think Libby and Chelsea could have an alliance in the future. And maybe because I feel like I don't know. I feel like yes, Chelsea did vote with like the Navidi strong throughout the first swap because she was maybe willing to vote out Bradley this episode, and maybe it was her idea over Dominic's idea. We don't really know from the edit. Maybe Chelsea didn't actually like working with these people, but she only did it because like, oh, we have the numbers. Let's not go out of the status quo. But maybe now she's like, okay, let's start the game kind of thing. And we saw more from Chelsea this episode, which I guess was good.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of players, they're definitely getting more on the like cover my own ass side of things, where it's like if they see that the vote isn't going to go their way, they'll vote against one of their own alliance members just so they don't stir the pot. So I feel like that's definitely something that we could see, and also see people like having to defend to their tribe members. Like if someone was like, oh, so-and-so voted for so-and-so in this vote, then I feel like sometimes it can be hard to make that whole I had to save myself argument, just because that makes you sound really like not a good alliance member to have, because it's like you don't want people who are just automatically going to jump ship to save themselves.
Yeah, I feel like for Chelsea, like if she really did not enjoy working with the whole Bradley thing at the other camp, like voting him out, good for you. Like you don't have that person that was maybe just bossing you around kind of way. And I feel like for Chelsea, she can sort of get away with this vote better than Dominic can, because I feel like come next week in the merge, people are going to be like feeling hurt by Dominic, like, oh, Dominic voted out Bradley, whereas I think Chelsea can be more sort of under the radar. And if she does start to get blame, I feel like she can sort of play it off and be like, Dominic forced me to vote Bradley out to sort of maybe get in the good graces of people. But then on the other hand, I think if Chelsea does play the like, oh me, oh my, like I was forced to do this, it sort of discredits her liability, or I guess like her what she can say at the end of the game in order to win. I feel like if Chelsea wants people to see that she's playing hard because she was called out by Michael and them at the first tribal council that they all went to for being at the bottom of the Bradley Kellan alliance. I think Chelsea saying she voted out Bradley once like someone like Michael told her and Sebastian that they were on the bottom, like that can be some good like kudos for her in the future, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely one of those things where I'm not sure she could use the Bradley thing just because we see a lot of jury members want to see like post-merge stuff that you did to further your own game. But I definitely see how you could undermine yourself saying something like that. So
Yeah. So I mean, I vote. It was like what we sort of expected. It was really up to the people in the game. Like we talked about it last podcast. It really, we can't really predict which way it goes because I feel like Libby and Bradley could have been the ones to go this episode. Very like, yeah.
Yeah. Did we talk about Jonathan and whether or not this was a good move for him?
You can start.
I feel like Jonathan, like, he's hard for me to peg just because I honestly don't see him, like, playing a game at all. Like, I think Bradley said, like, oh, Jonathan's only here for a beach vacation. And I feel like it's hard for me to gauge whether or not this move was good for his game just because I'm still not entirely sure, like, who he really wants to end up with. Like, which side he ultimately wants to fall on. And so I think it was good for him that Libby didn't get voted out because he seemed to be, like, in cahoots with her. But, like, I don't see Jonathan's long game.
No, for Don, I feel like he's just there in the game, maybe like a fly in the wall. He's sort of doing his own thing, being wishy-washy, like, oh, I like Dominic today. Oh no, now I like Chris because we bonded. And I feel like in some of Bradley's exit interviews, he was saying like, oh, Jonathan has become like super annoying on the island because after the whole incident in like the second immunity challenge when he dove in the water to help James out, he has just been like gaining this like weird confidence, which is like, okay, that's good, but I feel like it's being played up a lot on maybe the episodes and the edit too, which is sort of, I guess, like annoying. Like, why do you need to have the arc of like having these life experiences? Like everyone's going through maybe like a similar kind of thing. Like no one has lived on an island before, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Jonathan, he's not winning the game. I feel like people would bring him to the end of the game as a GOAT. And I feel like as long as you just aren't disliked by everyone on the jury, anyone can win against Jonathan right now.
Yeah, I feel like Jonathan like is likable, but he's not likable enough to justify giving him $1 million when he's sitting next to someone who's like played a good game.
Yeah, so like maybe Jonathan and Angela Angela maybe can't win against Jonathan, but I feel like if Jonathan sat with a lot of different combinations of final threes, I really don't see him winning. He'll just stay like his whole growth story, and like yes, maybe a growth story is good in like old Survivor, but I feel like now people want to hear your moves, and him being like, oh me, oh my. I don't know. I just don't really see that sticking to a jury. And, you know, I guess like never know because the people left in the game, I don't know. The people left in the game, I feel like we don't really know that much about. All the people that we knew a lot about got voted out before the merge.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that with the merge, like they'll start building new storylines so that we have more people to root for. Just because I feel like the people that we know a lot about either aren't serious like contenders like Jonathan, or they're likely to get like picked off really early in the merge, like Chris and Dominic.
Yeah, so then we're gonna, I don't know, I feel like this pre-merge has a lot of very, very likable people that go home. So it's maybe like one of the most likable pre-merge casts. I think also this move, good or bad for Kellan, and the rest of like the Bradley, Kellan, Navidi group. I think, I don't know. I think her and Bradley do, I guess, or did look like a power couple from the first tribe swap. Everyone on the original Malolos would always be like, okay, these two are running the show. So I think Kellan, like, maybe it's a good thing Bradley's gone because Bradley does push a lot of people the wrong way. And I feel like Kellan would be someone that would have gotten voted out by association of being close with Bradley, because every time this kind of things happens, they always vote out the right-hand person of the person that you, like, or don't like. Yeah, so it's like, I feel like Kellan, if Bradley were still in the game, could have been voted out as collateral damage.
Yeah. I think I'm excited to see, like, what happens to Kellan post-merge, just because it's like, since she doesn't have the liability of Bradley, I guess it's kind of like a second chance for, like, all of the people who did get voted out because their male partners in crime were stupid. So...
yeah, I think with this, with the rest of the episode and everything that's happened, I think 3 people stood out, and I think these 3 people are the ones to watch for winning the game. I definitely think Michael and then Kellan and then Wendell definitely stood out this episode. Everyone has got an advantage now, and I think these 3, I want to say one of them will win the game because we don't really know much about anyone else come the merge besides these 3 and then Dominic and Chris, and I feel like that's not going to last. So these 3 are the people to keep our eyes out for.
I also feel like Desiree had a really good episode this episode, just because like it was her idea to burn the Malolo flag, and like since she had the idea to burn the flag and then Malolo won, you could say like she was the one who reversed the Malolo curse. And since like it's all about reversing curses, and this is the first one that's been like successfully reversed, you could say that that means something good for her.
Yeah, I mean, I see with Desiree, she has been getting a lot of screen time, which is interesting, considering a lot of her screen time is more like funny comments rather than like gameplay, whereas Michael and Kellan's screen time, it's like gameplay kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we know Alyssa has Desiree as her winner pick.
Yeah.
So Michael finding the idol. So with this also, I am like, okay, you all know he's looking for the idol first of all, and you all verbally say it, and then you don't follow him. Angela goes out and like doesn't do anything. And so I feel like it's your own fault when everyone knows you're looking, but you don't do anything to stop it. It's in the plain daylight. You can easily follow Michael around to make sure he doesn't get an advantage or an idol, and it's like there's just the 3 of you and Michael left. What if you did lose this immunity challenge and you're going to be idled out of the game? Like, it's too risky not to just waste your time, like not to just go and follow him.
Yeah, I really don't get it when this happens, because it's like I don't understand. Like, I understand it more like when someone has an idol that no one knows that they got and then they get idled out, because it's like, okay, you didn't know that they had this idol, you didn't know that they were looking, so it's fine. Like, it's like last season with Ben, when everyone was talking about how like Ben didn't have an idol, or like Ben was looking for idols and then they weren't looking, like keeping track of him. It's just like, why would you do this?
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's sort of like their own fault. So I want to see one of them maybe be idled out by Michael, because that would just be justice from fans being voted out by them. And then you have the sweet revenge of idling someone out. And this idol was the stick, which I thought was amazing. I really wish James had done it last week with a fake stick. And I think Michael with this can play a lot of tricks on people, which would be very, very interesting. He could like give a fake stick to someone who might try to play it, or like, I don't know. I think it would just be really cool if like these things sort of happened.
Yeah, one of the things that Rachel and I were talking about was we didn't realize that all of the people who had touched the stick idol were voted out one right after the other, right after the other. Like we were just like, oh, that stick was so stupid. And then like when the flashback came on and it was like Jason and then Eliza and then Ozzy, or yeah, Eliza, then Ozzy, then Jason, I think was the order. Like I was like mind blown. I was shook.
Yeah, I think the only negative about everyone getting an advantage this episode, I think there was just so much time spent on the history with this and then Kellan's history and then Wendell's history. It seemed like a lot of like, okay, this is Survivor's past. Let's learn about some big moves that we've made. And everything from this episode was either from Micronesia, the two idols, and then Kellan's thing from Ghost Island was from Game Changers, and we've already seen something from Sarah from Game Changers, so I feel like why not mix it up when you have a lot of things to work with?
Yeah, like you have a lot of seasons of Survivor like to pull from, and I mean, I guess they can't control like when the various idols and advantages are going to be found, so maybe they didn't expect it to be like both found in the same episode. But like personally, I loved Micronesia as a season because it had so many like crazy ass moves like this, so I think that it's fine that there's multiple things from one season, but also just like the spacing ended up not working out so hot.
Yeah, especially because like the Game Changers thing. So Kellan goes to Ghost Island and she plays the game, which I was like, yes, good, because it is an individual game now. And I think her playing the game and winning will prove to be successful, especially because Bradley is just voted out. So now she doesn't really have the right hand person. And when it's a 2 out of 3 chance, so you have 66% chance of winning over your 50% chance last time, like I feel like you have to go for the game. And it really reminded me of like the GOAT car game where it is a 66% chance of winning and you always want to switch your pick after they reveal one thing. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't even remember this like Michaela thing from Game Changers. Like her writing that thing on the parchment and getting voted out because she didn't find it at her feet.
Yeah, I remembered that she didn't find it because she was like being pissy, just because I remember people were like, this is why I don't like Michaela as a player, because like she let her emotions get the better of her, and like she was definitely more of a good character than a good Survivor player. But I didn't remember that Sarah used that to vote Michaela off, but yeah.
Yeah, see, yeah, I remember the like challenge where she wasn't chosen and then Sarah got it, but I didn't remember like that was the reasoning that Michaela got voted off. So it's like when you have something like that, okay, recency, people would probably remember something like this, but like why is Sarah getting so much screen time with the whole legacy advantage thing too? Why not have the legacy advantage from Millennials versus Gen X when Jessica got idled out with it? Like it didn't really turn out in the way maybe producers wanted the legacy advantage to go, like where someone hears about it and then votes someone out because of it. But like being rocked out and then having to give the legacy advantage, I don't know. It's just like, why have these things that people don't really remember from these seasons when you have so many other things? How about like Stephen Fishback with his second vote getting all these other things? Like I really just don't understand.
I feel like Sarah got more screen time than whoever the first boot was. I don't even remember who the first boot of this season was, but Sarah's gotten more screen time than
so, yeah, like I don't know, Sarah's getting more screen time than people that are in the game right now. Like Sebastian, we didn't see him this episode. Granted, he didn't go to tribal, and we do have 3 tribes, but like I don't care about all this history. I don't know. It's just like 2 Micronesia things, 2 Game Changers things, and I guess, yeah, Kellan with this advantage, it will be good. Like an extra vote at tribal, it could be useful at the even number tribal councils, or where someone is like iffy, and I don't know. It's even better now that I think Bradley got voted out, and she can really use this to her advantage.
Yeah, I'm happy for Kellan, and I also was happy that she was like talking about the reason why she did. I like that she didn't back down from not playing last time, because I feel like that was definitely the right choice for her to make at that time. But I also like that she was like, this is why I can take the game into my own hands.
Yeah, so I think for Kellan, like, things are looking up. I think going back to the immunity challenge, this was also seen last season, but obviously the players this season have not seen it on TV, so they didn't know the trick is that like the person stacking the block didn't need any tension, and you can just run up, and like one of the groups figure that out by the end. So I feel like easy once you know the trick to it. This is a really easy challenge to do, so I feel like they can't really do it that much in the future, because once you get it, you get it. And I don't know, my only problem with this was like I did not see it as a reward challenge, because there's not a ton at stake. It's not that stressful. It was fun to watch, but it's like if you lose, who cares? You just lose stake. You're not losing immunity where someone's getting voted out.
Yeah, I feel like what's always interesting to me is like I like it better when they combine when there's 3 tribes and they combine the immunity and reward. And it's like the first place tribe gets both immunity and reward, the second place tribe gets immunity, and then the third place tribe goes to tribal council. Like I feel like that's better than like having to fit in 2 challenges, especially in an episode like this where like there was so much other stuff going on.
Yeah, so like I don't know. I didn't see this working as a reward challenge. Maybe you could have switched the reward and immunity challenge. Because like throwing the discs at the end, like that's not really a time consumer, whereas like a puzzle, it takes a lot of time, so it's the great equalizer. Throwing the rings onto pegs, it's like if you have the lead, you shouldn't lose unless you suck at throwing rings onto pegs. So I feel like with this, they picked the perfect person to send to Ghost Island. With not knowing what Ghost Island is, I feel like sending Kellan again, it's one less person you have to be wary of who may have an advantage, may not. And now that Kellan has gone twice, people should remember this and maybe be more cautious around voting for her, and maybe splitting the votes when you do want to vote for her, that kind of thing. And I feel like you 100% cannot send someone to Ghost Island that just won the second place steak kebab prize, because they will 100% hate you forever. So I feel like Kellan was the good choice to pick to go.
I feel like Kellan was the good choice, and I'm also wondering if her getting sent to Ghost Island twice will be good for her, as far as like people will want to be allies with her because they'll want to know what's happening on Ghost Island. And like also she'll be able to use like what she knows about Ghost Island, like the way that it works, etc., to like be able to more accurately vote for other people, because I think Kellan's going to be able to know that A, like not everyone gets an advantage, and B, like you have to risk something to get an advantage. So like Kellan might be able to say, oh, this person might have played a game and lost their vote or whatever. So
yeah, so I think come the merge, it'll be really interesting to see how people start getting sent to Ghost Island. So like, oh, if you win the immunity challenge, you can send someone to Ghost Island, or oh, every single reward challenge will be like in groups, and the winning group can send someone from the losing groups to Ghost Island. It'll be really interesting to see, and sort of like the strategy behind who you're sending to Ghost Island, because do you send a weak person to maybe make them more powerful, kind of thing, or do you send strong people to make them weaker if they have to like live out there for X amount of hours? But yeah, I don't know. Then you also have to pick people, like you sort of want your alliance members to go to Ghost Island. So I feel like we'll sort of see an Exile Island kind of play on this. Like you will have to take one for the team and go to Ghost Island to keep the advantages on your tribe team, rather than like sending someone who isn't on your alliance to Ghost Island.
yeah, I feel like one of the things about like Ghost Island post-merge is I feel like within your alliance, you need to decide, like, are you okay with me sending you to Ghost Island, or will you see this as a personal attack? Because I feel like if you don't have that conversation beforehand, then people can get really pissy and be like, oh, so-and-so sent me to Ghost Island because they think I'm in the last place in our alliance or whatever. And it's like, I feel like if you sit down with your alliance and you're like, listen, I want to send you to Ghost Island so you can get an advantage for our alliance, and I trust you the most. That's like, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that is 100% what you have to do. I think it gets really tricky when, like, say it's a reward challenge and one person wins and they have to pick people to go on the reward with them. And then you also have to send someone to Ghost Island. So then I feel like people will get very butthurt over this, and like emotions are running high in general. And so if you pick 3 people from your alliance, one person gets shit out of luck and has to go to Ghost Island, I feel like that person would be offended maybe by the decision. So you really have to make sure all your ducks are in a row if you will be sending your own alliance members to Ghost Island. But I think that's the way that you have to do it. You cannot be sending an opposing alliance members to Ghost Island when they could win extra votes, steal votes, lose a vote, those kind of things. So, like, everyone will just, I feel like you have to maybe go in an order. Everyone has to take one for the team. It's your turn to go. You know, and maybe that will cause less conflicts. Come say, like, oh, I really wanted this reward, but no, you have to go to Ghost Island. It's your turn. Sorry. Like, that's the way it goes.
I feel like also it could get messy within alliances, like, oh, I went to Ghost Island and I didn't get a game. Like, do you actually believe your alliance member when they say that? Or do you start getting a little suspicious if they're like, hey, I didn't get a game? Like, I feel like I would be suspicious of anyone who was like, oh, I didn't get a game at Ghost Island, because I'd be like, or you did get a game and you just don't want to tell me.
No, it could be like Ben, and you can double cross your alliance so easily if you get a really good advantage. Turns out, like, okay, I really don't like how, like, Kellan is running things. She's going to win. Let's vote her out, kind of thing, and start your little, like, subgroup that's going to vote out the big dogs, which definitely is something that needs to happen, because otherwise I feel like Kellan, Wendell, I combined those 2 names, and Michael are in the top running right now for winning.
Yeah, I feel like those are definitely the ones that, like, have a solid chance, just because I was excited that we got to see more of Wendell's, like, personal life, just because now we know more than just like, oh, he's a furniture designer. So I feel like definitely the people that we're getting to see more personal stuff from are the people that I feel like are more likely to be winner picks. So yeah.
Yeah, so we see Wendell finding this giant ass idol. Like, I just sort of want him to, like, play it or bring it to tribal. I'll be very interested to see, like, oh, if he puts it in his bag, like, that thing is still huge, or like you cannot put that in your pants, kind of thing. Or do you just wear it and pretend like, I don't know, I feel like you would have to spin some kind of lie. And I think with something like this, which is like a huge necklace, it's obviously not something that's fake, like Dominic's fake idols. I feel like something like this, it will be good to protect him, especially if people think he's close to Dom come the merge episode next week. And I feel like with this idol especially, you can have a lot of good eyes with this immunity idol. Like, I don't know, because it is so fancy, I feel like Wendell could definitely say, like, maybe you can play it after the votes are read, kind of thing, and play it off of, like, oh, since Eric gave it to Natalie before votes are read, the powers have changed, and now he can play it after votes are read or something, and that could frick a lot of people over.
Yeah, I feel like Wendell, it looked like he just buried the idol back where he found it after he found it so that he didn't have to carry it back to camp with him. So I'm wondering, like, how he's going to get it into his bag and stuff like that. Just because I feel like if you see someone go into the jungle with their bag, isn't that a little suspicious?
So I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's sort of sucky that this thing is so big, and it's like Michael's thing is a stick. Well, I guess, you know, James's nails were very large also, but like it's so much easier to hide a stick in your pants rather than this big ass necklace that is like very ornate. So I don't know. I'd be really interested in seeing what Wendell is going to do with this, because I feel like because it is so beautiful, you can say so many lies with this now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like one of the things you need to do before you go on Survivor is figure out how to make realistic lies, because I feel like sometimes on Survivor, people are like, oh, I'm such a good liar, and then they tell the worst lies, and I'm like...
So, I don't know. I think Merge next week is going to be very interesting. I think the Dominic Chris feud is going to play out. That was like the entire preview for next week, which is sort of annoying. But Dominic has that legacy advantage. I feel like Dominic isn't going to go home next week unless he's dumb and doesn't play the legacy advantage, or is like overconfident and doesn't think he's going to get votes. So I feel like Dominic probably plays the legacy advantage because he's smart, and like you can only play it at such limited times. Like you don't know if you'll make it to 6, might as well use it at 13 while you have it rather than get voted out before 6 kind of thing. And this is Chris's first tribal council of the season, which is crazy. So I feel like Chris, being the like challenge beast that he is, I feel like he either could win immunity this episode, but I feel like they might think like, oh, just to be safe, maybe he has an idol or advantage or something. Let's not be too obvious. And I feel like people will target these people's right-hand person next week. I don't really see Chris or Dominic maybe going home, but I could see someone like Angela, who is perceived close to Chris, going home, or maybe Wendell, but Wendell does have the idol, so I feel like it's going to be someone who is close to Chris going home because Dominic is safe. So they could legacy advantage someone out next week.
I think it's going to be Chris, because I feel like the whole Chris versus Dom thing is going to like explode. And I also just think it would be really funny to vote Chris out off his first tribal council.
That would be... See, that's the other issue. Like, do we like Chris? Do we not like Chris? Chris has been getting so much like weird screen time of... I don't even know. Editing is just like, okay, you don't like Chris, he's cocky and arrogant, but then, oh, when he talks about his mom, like, you want to like Chris. I feel like that would just be very interesting if Chris is voted out his first tribal, but I feel like Chris seems like the kind of person, very athletic, wanting to always win, and like winning first immunity, especially if the whole Chris Dom thing starts building at the merge feast. Chris might get wind, or like they both know they want each other out, so I feel like Chris would do more that he can to try to win the immunity necklace.
Yeah, I feel like Chris, one of the things about Chris though is I don't think he's going to realize how big of a target he has on his back until it's too late.
Yeah, which is like interesting, weird, because I feel like the entire Chris Dom feud has been happening in sort of an alternate universe than everyone else this season. Everyone else has been doing their own thing. Laurel does her own thing. Donathan does his own thing. But come together, Chris and Dom just like have this argument, and it's like, who's, if this is going to play out next week, which we'll start to see it play out, I feel like, who's really in each of their courts to vote the other out and go head to head, because I feel like both of them don't really have solid alliances. It's just like them two out here and the rest of the tribe doing their own thing and voting each other out, whereas they're just so focused on each other. They don't really have, like, I just don't see how they're going to vote each other out, and it's like people will just be happy it's not them going home and will like vote one of them out, but like it's not a long-lasting alliance, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are going to be scrambling at the beginning of the merge with the whole as long as it isn't me thing. So I'm wondering how the late merge game is going to go, because I feel like a lot of alliances are going to end up really screwing themselves over. So
yeah, because I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where people will fall next week. You know, we see people who are friends and working together, but were they really working together because they wanted to work together, or was it just easier to work together because you had that Navidi numbers advantage? So I feel like I don't know. We don't really have that many people left this season that we really want to root for. So I feel like a lot of the votes, when like, oh, Jenna gets voted out, like who cares? Oh, Libby gets voted out. I don't know. It's not, I feel like they're just not going to be big episodes of people getting voted out. It's going to be more like, oh, the fan favorites are using these idols to idol out maybe the lesser well-known people left on the season.
Yeah, I feel like definitely a lot of people are going to get idled out or advantaged out, which is like kind of the point of Ghost Island, I guess. Like the point of Ghost Island is to like give idols and advantages, it seems. So like, yeah, I feel like definitely the people who aren't as well known probably are going to get like the short end of the stick with their vote outs not being as interesting, just because like I think we talked about this last week, but it's hard to be upset about someone getting voted out. Like, if you don't really know anything about them.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, JP got voted out. That was super interesting the way he got voted out, but JP never talked the entire season. So it's like, in the end, JP going home doesn't really a lot of the dynamics for like Chrissy and Ryan, besides now that they're at the bottom and they've just been betrayed. But like, I don't know, like if someone, Chelsea, oh, okay, like she goes home, who really cares? It's just losing a number for Kellan.
Yeah. Oh, basically, Kellan's the only one I care about.
Kellan, Michael, and Wendell. So I guess that rounds out this episode. Let us know what you think. Some people have been chatting in the chat for this episode, which is super cool. We've been like looking through them. But yeah, I guess leave a comment down below. Who do you think is going to go home at the merge? Do you think Dom or Chris is going to go home, or do you think one of their peeps in their alliance is going to go home as a second choice? Yeah, I'm super excited. Merge episodes are sometimes interesting. Sometimes I guess they can be sort of boring, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.